In the year 2020, I started a podcast about movies. Some episodes occasionally focused on other media as well. As I dealt with threatening interdimensional beings, I eventually met my other self from another universe where all the stuff I talked about got delayed. As it turns out, the stories as me and my guests described them were presented very differently in that other universe. So I continued podcasting these recaps, which apparently sound like improvised reviews, to entertain listeners of that other universe while they waited for the new release dates. Some episodes even focused on content of years past that did not come out in that other universe for whatever reason. The year is 2022. The podcast is now bi-weekly, unless stated otherwise. My name is Steven Schinder, and you're listening to Delayed Replay. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, that podcast where we recap and review movies that got delayed in that other universe but came out on time in our universe. I'm your host, as always, Steven Schinder, and joining me once again, you've heard him on several episodes, possibly if you've been listening long enough, it is Greg. How's it going?
It's going well. I've just come off watching Godzilla 2000. Even though it came out in 1999, I don't know why they did that.
Because Godzilla 1999 doesn't have as good of a ring to it, I guess.
It's called Godzilla 2000 Millennium, as if they've got to say it twice.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I feel like that was an era where everyone just wanted 2000 in the title. Like, I remember the second Pokemon movie was titled Pokemon the Movie 2000.
Oh.
Yeah, I even saw that one in the theater.
Like Blade Runner 2049. That came out in 2049.
Right, yeah, it definitely didn't come out 2017. but I was gonna say I've actually been watching a show from the 70s called Space 1999, and it's I've been enjoying it. It's kind of like it's by Jerry Anderson, who did UFO and also like those like a marionette shows like Thunderbirds and those types of things. Yeah, so I think that's a rare instance where 1999 actually works well in the title. But
yeah.
But yeah, Godzilla 1999 wouldn't have worked. I think it's because it has like too many syllables, maybe.
And then Millennium. They probably called it like Godzilla Nearly the Millennium, but not close enough.
Right. I mean, technically, depending on whether or not there's a year zero, I think if there's no year zero, then technically the year 2001 would be the beginning of a new millennium. Yeah, there was a Seinfeld episode that touched on that a little bit, and it was kind of confusing, but
of course.
But anyway, like speaking of movies with like giant things fighting, we're talking about Transformers Rise.
Pacific Rim.
Yeah, we're talking about Pacific Rim. No, we're talking about Transformers Rise of the Beasts, released June 24th, 2022 over here. Yeah, I guess before we dive into this movie, how did you get into the Transformers franchise, like, over the years?
Like, ever since it started, I had them on Blu-ray. So I've watched them so many times, so I've grown up with them.
Oh, when he said ever since it started, I was imagining like, oh, ever since like the toy line began in like the 70s or 80s or something.
I thought about the 2007 movie.
Okay, so like that was your entry point?
Yeah. No, not the 80s. I wasn't born in the 80s.
Right, yeah, because you were born in 1999, so like nearly the millennium, but not quite the millennium.
Exactly.
Yeah, so not Greg 2000.
No, I'm Greg 1999.
Gregzilla 2000.
I wouldn't want to watch that, honestly.
Yeah, me neither. So you've seen like all the movies, and were there any like animated Transformers things that you ever got into, or like
Just the movie
okay,
that we saw part of the Sci-Fi and Horror Society, and that's pretty much it. I haven't really touched anything else yet.
right, the 80s like animated movie?
Yeah, Transformers the movie, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the title, you're right. I'm kind of in a similar boat. I've seen all the live action movies and the animated movie as well. I think the earliest instance that I knew about Transformers, so, like I think I was aware of the toys as a kid, and we might have had like either me or someone I knew had maybe a few Transformers toys, or perhaps toys from like some other line that was similar to Transformers, like GoBots or something, or
Yeah.
this other like really purple shiny one that I can't remember the name of. I'll look it up later if I can find it. And put in the show notes if I figure out what it is. But yeah, I think I was aware of the toys, and then when I was a kid, like maybe 8, 9, or 10, I was like flipping channels, and there might have been some sort of Transformers animated show on Cartoon Network. I'm not sure which one it was, but one of the voice actors sounded like Eddie from the show Ed, Ed and Eddie. So maybe,
Amazing.
yeah, so maybe that could narrow it down. More recently, like within the last couple of years, Netflix had a 3D animated Cybertron trilogy, and I watched that first season of that trilogy and I thought it was decent. Like there was more talking and not too much like fighting and explosions, but I forgot to like watch the rest of the trilogy. So
I haven't seen those yet. I tend to
yeah.
do like an entire thing going from like the first series all the way through. Maybe not the anime, because I don't know how easy it is to get hold of those.
Yeah, that reminds me, back in I guess uni as you would call it, back when I went to UC Irvine, there was this anime club where they did screenings, and at some point they were thinking of doing, they would play an episode of Gundam, like a different episode each week, but each episode would be from a different Gundam series. So they'd pick like the first episode of one Gundam series, and then the next week watch the second episode of a different one, and it just sounded like really chaotic.
Yeah,
um,
because they jump around a lot.
Yeah, but I've also read a little bit of Transformers comics from IDW about 7 years and 4 months ago now, I guess. Like back in March of 2015, I want to say, I got this humble bundle of Transformers comics. They probably came out like late 2000s, early 2010s or something, and the art looked really colorful and nice. And I read like 2 or 3 of the trade paperbacks. I think they were called Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye. Like there were a couple of different series. So like I started them, but I got busy and didn't read the rest of them. And then a few years later, there was another humble bundle of Transformers comics, and it was like also from that same continuity. And so I figured, yeah, I'll get them. I'm gonna read all these eventually, and I still haven't continued reading those comics. So it's like I low key kind of regret spending like $30 or whatever it was like all together on both those bundles.
Oof.
Maybe it was a little bit more. I can't quite remember, but yeah, I gotta read those at some point because otherwise it's like a waste. But
Yeah,
yeah, up to this point, like prior to Rise of the Beasts, and you and I differ on like opinions on this, but my favorite was Bumblebee
definitely.
because
Yeah.
it was more character driven. But like, which one was your favorite of the live action movies before like Rise of the Beasts?
I'd probably say the first movie. Just
Okay.
gets it all going. Yes, from then on, it kind of like Revenge of the Fallen does have the testicle bit, which is hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
Gotta love the testicles of what's it called? Like Disastertron, whatever the fuck it's called, the really huge one.
Yeah, I think I've forgotten about that bit until like you mentioned it like just now.
Yeah, like he like John Turturro, because he always gets like the weirdest parts in those movies.
Yeah, he does.
But like yeah, the trilogy is pretty much where my enjoyment stops.
I think the only one I saw in the theater was Dark of the Moon, and I found it somewhat entertaining because of the parts where Sam Witwicky would lose his shit when like things would go wrong for him, and so it was like kind of funny. Yeah, I also paid to watch that one in 3D because it was like at the time where I was like, oh, I gotta see these in 3D, and when really I didn't actually need to.
Yeah, I saw all of them in the cinema, at least the main ones, after a couple, just because I think.
But yeah, there is like a huge drop off after those, like with um Age was the I always forget the title
Age of
of these
Extinction.
fucking things. Yeah. Okay, yeah, like Revenge of the Fallen and Age of Extinction I kind of get mixed up in my head, I guess. And then there's that fifth
Extinction is the
one.
Mark Wahlberg one where he starts.
Yeah, that one was pretty cringy in places. And then the fifth one, which I didn't watch until like within these last few months,
Oh
because it's on
wow.
Paramount Plus. It was The Last Night, and
Oh,
it was so weird that they were able to get Anthony Hopkins, an actually good actor, in the movie, and like the stuff he says makes like the scenes he's in are more tolerable because of him, but other than that, it's like I'm not enjoying the majority of this. It's just
like why would you bring the Knights of the Round Table into Transformers? That never made any sense to me. Like, oh yeah, they knew the Autobots back then. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, Transformers lore has all sorts of weird things like Dinobots and the Beasts, as we'll get into. So I wasn't sure if like the Knights of the Round Table were anything to do with pre-established Transformers lore, but it could have worked if the script were better and just like if everything were better, I guess.
It was just a CGI fest.
Right,
Well, I
yeah.
think they all are, but especially the last night.
Yeah,
It was like all in like the sky and everything.
yeah, which is why I think another reason I prefer Bumblebee is because it's not as much of a CGI fest. But I know lots of people. Well, I don't know like what fraction of fans, but some people were like, "Oh, I want to see more of the Cybertron scene in the beginning." But I guess like the
I did
other
want to, honestly.
right, but I guess the other Transformers movies made me so numb to just the Transformers of it all that I was fine with just a simpler story with Bumblebee. It was a weird situation where it kind of seemed like Bumblebee would be a prequel to those other movies, and then once it got like a lot of good critical reception, they decided, oh, actually, this is a reboot. So it was kind of like, for a moment, it was kind of Schrodinger's prequel slash reboot type of thing, but now it's like set up a new continuity, and Rise of the Beasts continues from that like several years later in 1994, with Bumblebee taking place in the 80s. I think it was like 87. But Rise of the Beasts is meant to be the start of a new trilogy, so it's kind of a different setup, a different premise, and a bit bigger in like the direction that it goes. So, what did you think of this decision to go with this 1994 setting?
I mean, we all got to have some more 90s movies, right?
So, like, we've done 80s nostalgia to death, so it's like might as well shift to the 90s. And I feel like we've been gradually shifting to that. Like, I remember like 5 years ago or something, there was a Netflix show called Everything Sucks, which I thought was quite good, and I was really upset that it got canceled. It was about these middle school kids going through like personal problems and stuff, and it was kind of like Freaks and Geeks, which was set in the 80s. It was kind of a similar vibe, but alas, it's a Netflix show, so they got to cancel it if it's not Stranger Things, I guess.
Wasn't strange enough.
Right, yeah. And we've got like a couple other movies that have come out over the last few years that have taken place in the 90s. There's another one from Netflix called Mixtape, which I really liked. It was about a girl whose parents passed away when she was a baby, I think, and so she's trying to find all these songs that were on a mixtape that they left behind that got broken, and sort of trying to like connect with them again. And I thought it was a cute movie. But yeah, I'm just ready for like the influx of 90s nostalgia now. Heck, I've even been enjoying the Rugrats reboot, even though like some people don't like the 3D animation. I quite like it.
Yeah, I guess we've done 80s to death at this point.
Yeah, and I mean 1994, like some of the best things came out that year, myself included.
Wow, bias much.
Yeah, I guess we should mention Ted as well, because I think he was born in 1994.
Year of Pulp Fiction, Speed.
Yeah, and The Lion King,
The
Clerks.
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, I mean with Clerks, for coming out with Clerks 3, we watched that trailer earlier this week, and you can tell they did a decent job trying to recreate the 90s feel. Like you don't see anyone with cell phones or anything, and I kind of feel like that works to their advantage because cell phones make things easier for the heroes and like the protagonists. So lack of cell phones does make for a nice little, well, like it makes things a bit more challenging for the characters, I feel. So it's
And you don't get like the big scenes where everyone's on their phones recording stuff.
right, or like on their laptops, or yeah, or like using headphones or AirPods, like I know you hate.
Oh.
Yeah, like instead we have people listening to like tape players and CD players and stuff.
Walkmans. Yeah, saw a couple of Walkmans in there.
We're introduced to a couple of new human characters. And like this has to do with like archaeology stuff, which is fascinating. So we have Dominique Fishback as Elena, and she is an artifact researcher for a museum. But of course, her boss like takes the credit for like her findings and stuff, which is really, it's like really scummy and like it really sucks, obviously. So automatically I'm rooting for her, and because like, and it doesn't help that her boss is played by Paul Giamatti, who is like really good at playing like scumbag type of people.
Yeah, he is good. I do like his stuff.
Yeah, and we get Anthony Ramos as Noah, an ex-military electronics expert who lives with his family in Brooklyn, and he's trying to support them. I thought he was an interesting choice because he's like a singer-songwriter who's been in stuff like Hamilton, In the Heights, the A Star Is Born movie that we both didn't like.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So it was kind of weird. What did you think of the moments where Anthony Ramos's character would just take out his guitar when he's like thinking of stuff and just like play a little song briefly?
It definitely set the mood because he was like playing all those 90s songs. So obviously it was like remember baiting or whatever the hell you call it.
Yeah, like nostalgia bait.
That's what I meant to say. Remember baiting? That's what you call it now, honestly.
Right, or member berries, like in South Park.
Yeah, that's what you called the things in Stranger Things. You called them member berries.
Yeah. Yeah, and he'd play like those '90s songs like from Nirvana and stuff. You know, like there's
Of course.
something
In my ass. Yes, I haven't heard that song enough, have we?
right. And the reason that he's ex-military is that he got discharged. And what'd you think of like the reason that he got like discharged from like electronics military expert, like from that role?
Oh, because obviously he was like hacking and stuff. Because you should never be hacking in a governmental facility. You know, it's big doo doo.
Yeah, he was like suspecting conspiracy stuff because
Yeah,
he'd heard rumors that they were like trying to research like whether there's like alien robot life out there and on Earth, and he was just like too curious. And when he got caught, he was like, "Oh, I thought this was a Super Mario Kart," and you know, you got to get those like '90s video game references
yeah.
in there.
But they tried to have a banana. What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, so he's like struggling to make ends meet with his family. And you know, he's trying to look for a job and it's tough. What'd you think of this montage where like he applies for different jobs?
Oh,
Like
because you always like see like the scummy managers. Like they will just like say mean stuff about him like constantly. Like, oh, you can't get this job. What are you doing here?
yeah, they're like telling him to like get a haircut or something. And
Yeah.
like one of the jobs he's applying to be a barber, and they're like get a haircut, and he's like, but I'll afford to get one if you let me work here.
You don't have an experience. Get a job. What do you think I'm doing here?
Yeah, and he also applies to be like a pizza delivery guy, and you can tell that he's like, I'm gonna hate this job if I get it, and lo and behold, he becomes a pizza delivery guy, and
It's pizza time.
yeah, it's pizza time. Yeah, just driving around delivering pizzas, and it's yeah, it doesn't look very fun for him. But he discovers that this pizza delivery car is actually one of the Autobots, and it sort of like gets him introduced into like the world of the Autobots. So of course we get returning characters like Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, but we also get like Mirage, RC, and Wheeljack. He sort of like gets to know them. They sort of fill him in on like what's going on and how they have heard word that there's like some sort of expedition going on in Machu Picchu. And of course, that's where Elena's character is going to like see what she can find. And so they're kind of skeptical about Noah, but he sort of like talks his way into hanging out with them because he like really hates his job, I guess. So we cut to like Peru and Machu Picchu and all that stuff. And what'd you think of the scenery here?
It was really beautiful, and you could kind of see that had little Indiana Jones hidden in the corner somewhere.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't clearly Harrison Ford, but like you can see he was there doing his stuff.
Yeah, like we get a little someone with that type of hat, like doing some like
Yeah,
digging, and we get something like bigger, like way at the end. But yeah, it was kind of weird, like seeing, wow, if he's like in his 90s here, he's just like, is he just chilling, like just like helping out with the dig right here? It's kind of weird.
I mean it would be set like 40 years after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, so if you think about it, it all lines up.
Yeah, and it's like 25 years after Lost City of Gold, the fifth Indiana Jones movie, where he also went to Machu Picchu to find the Mayan calendar. So
See it all comes circles around.
Yeah, I think full circle was the words you were looking for.
I was looking for something there.
Yeah, like Elena briefly mentions how like he was her mentor or something, but like as the plot progresses, Elena does like some more digging and like discovers the Maximals and Terror Cons and like what they're all about. How familiar were you with like the Beast side of the Transformers franchise before all this?
I think I had like a Rhino Transformer toy, but I think that's about it.
Yeah, because one of these is Rhinox, so maybe that was the one. But yeah, I think as a kid, there may have been Beast Wars toys here and there. I am vaguely familiar with well, like I know that in the mid 90s there was an animated series called Transformers Beast Wars or something.
Yeah.
And several years ago I was on a Star Wars podcast called Delusions of Granular. And on one of the episodes I covered a Star Wars audio drama called Tales of the Jedi, Ulic Kildroma, and the Beast Wars of Onderon. And so I thought it would be funny for the song at the beginning of that to be the Transformers Beast Wars theme after I like went looking for like some songs and like yeah, that theme is like kind of cheesy and the animation for that show is kind of it's very dated, like it's chunky CGI. Apparently, it was made by the creators of the '90s 3D animated show Reboot, like which may have been one of the first 3D animated shows. And as dated as the CGI for Reboot looks, it's actually like a really well written show for the most part, like the first 3 seasons anyway. I admit, looking at like the clips of Beast Wars kind of makes me want to watch that show at some point. I guess that's
Yeah,
like,
I do want to watch it too, just because of the movie as well. Just so
yeah,
I know, because I don't know how much, because the storytelling in be in this movie kind of like doesn't really it kind of sets up the trilogy, obviously, because it's the first movie. So like there's a lot of questions that were left unanswered in this movie, and I feel that if you watch the show, because obviously they might have taken some storylines from the Beast Wars show. So if we watch the show, we might be able to like have a better grasp of what might happen in this trilogy.
yeah, because I know that the Beast Wars show kind of changed the lore a little bit from what I heard. But uh, like there might have been like some criticisms of that from Transformers fandom, but I think over time, like after it became like its own thing, it's sort of like people got used to it and started liking it more. So I am curious, like what they might have drawn from that into this movie. Um, we should also mention that there are like a couple of different ways to view this movie. Like you can pay to see it. Like obviously there's like the 2D and 3D formats, but you can also decide whether you want to watch it like the normal way or the retro way, where like instead of modern CGI for like the Transformers, like the beasts and stuff, you can see them in like chunky 90s CGI for like the nostalgia factor.
Which one did you watch?
I watched both of them. So
Wow.
yeah,
I
I
just
know.
watched the normal one.
Yeah, I guess I'm part of the problem. Like Paramount got me with this marketing gimmick.
So, which would you recommend then?
I mean, the story is the same either way. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say because like the normal one, it looks cleaner. Like the CGI looks nicer, and obviously the '90s looking CGI looks pretty like messy, but also has like a charm to it because of that. So Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like if someone's watching that version for the first time, it might hinder their experience, like whether or not they like the movie. So I think I would say watch the normal version, and then if you like the movie, then go see it a second time in the retro mode. I think it's called.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a good way to get you to watch it twice, I've got to say.
Yeah, I guess I'll probably do this for like the rest of the trilogy because it worked on me, I guess. But yeah, what'd you think of all these designs for like the Maximals and the Terrorcons and just like the Transformers in general in this movie?
Because they're less like mechanical than we used to. Like, because obviously, because they're more like beast-like rather than machines.
When they sort of conform to like the shapes of some of the animals that they're based on. So you do have some rounded parts of their mechanical bodies. So it sort of circles around, I guess you would say.
Yeah, it did take some getting used to, because obviously what we're used to isn't these animals. Well, if you haven't seen the shows and whatever.
Yeah, I quite like the animal shapes that they're based on. Like we said, we got a rhino, we got a peregrine falcon, a cheetah, gorilla, and like okay. So do you think that the terror, that's hard to pronounce these things. The terror cons, like, do you think that they looked vicious enough, or like, what's your take on them?
They definitely look like they'd eat my head off, for sure. The CGI is, I think, it's the main gripe I have with it. With the Terracons, is that they were they're like too shiny. I don't know if you got that as well. They look
Yeah,
too metallic for what they were supposed to be.
yeah, they definitely looked too shiny. Even when I guess people wanted them to not look too much like the other Transformers that are obviously metallic and car looking. So these looked shinier than I think we would have liked. But there were also moments where they're like inside of a dark cave or whatever, and they're still like really shiny, and it's like, where's all the light coming from? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, it's very off-putting, I think. Because like, even like Optimus Primal was a bit, because obviously he's an ape.
Yeah, and I do like the wordplay with the name, like Optimus Primal, because primates. I said primate at first because like that's a Pokemon name I'm so used to, but yeah, um, I quite like the name Optimus Primal. It harkens back to that sort of animalistic feel, like with primates and stuff. It also reminds me though of dinosaurs weirdly because of when Carl's Jr. did like that Jurassic World Dominion promotion where they had like all these primal items on their menu, like they called them like primal rib or something, and um, they're they were kind of average. Like I enjoyed the food while I was eating it, but afterward I'm like that's pretty forgettable. I'm not gonna remember like the experience of eating this. Like they didn't taste bad, but it's like they didn't taste very remarkable. They just kind of fill you up, I guess. Um, but yeah, I guess that's a roundabout way of saying that. I do like the names in this, and I mean Ron Perlman as Optimus Primal. What did you think of that casting choice?
I think it's pretty decent. But if they got Andy Serkis instead, he knows how to play apes.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, because Ron Perlman he's such a good actor. Like he was the first Hellboy, and he's done great
Yeah.
voice work as Slade in the Teen Titans TV show. But now that you've put like Andy Serkis in my head, it's like, oh man, he's like I definitely would have preferred him as like Optimus Primal.
I don't know why they didn't do that, but I guess because he's done too many ape stuff, he doesn't really want to do anymore. I don't know what's his stance is on it.
Yeah, and I know we already mentioned that Paul Giamatti plays Elena's boss at the museum. I thought it was a funny choice that they also had him voice Rhinox. I guess it's supposed to be a reference to when he played Rhino at the very end of the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh, that was yeah. The film just ends. What the hell?
Yeah.
No more.
And there was that fan theory that the movie ends there because Rhino kills Spider-Man right after it cuts to credits.
And that's when he jumps to
No Way
Nowhere
Home.
Home. Yeah, because you see he's walking through whatever.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it would have been better if you just see him running away from Rhino.
Yeah. Honestly, Rhinox in this movie looked so much like that Rhino mech suit in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 that it was kind of distracting to me. Like, at first, it was kind of funny to me. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then the more it went on and the more I was like so aware that's Paul Giamatti, he was even trying to do that Russian accent again. It just kind of got like really been there, done that. Like it felt old hat as it kept going to me. But thankfully he's not like the only Maximal here, like not the only robot. So I guess I was able to put up with it somewhat.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Right. And of course the Terracons, like we mentioned, you know, we have Scourge who is able to, you know, he collects trophies and he's able to look like a black Peterbilt 359 logging semi truck. I did not memorize that because I do not know cars as well. I'm just reading it off of the cast list, just full discretion. Nightbird can look like a Nissan Skyline. Battle Trap can look like an 80s GMC Top Kick. So we do get like all these different car transformations that I guess are supposed to look like this era. And well, I guess like some of these models are like a couple of decades old, so they're not like too flashy. But I thought it was kind of funny when one of them turned into one of those trucks where it has like an advertisement on the side and it said Pepsi on it. I had mixed feelings about like this advertising because the Transformers movies are so infamous for having like lots of advertising, and there's even a nostalgic video about it. But this was an instance where it wasn't too bad, I don't think, because it was like this was this far into the movie. This was like the first time seeing something like this, so I was like, okay, I guess it's more subdued here, so maybe I can put up with it. But I don't know. What did you think of the amount of like advertising within this movie?
Yeah, it wasn't as blurring or glaringly obvious as the mainline series was. It was alright. Like, there wasn't anything that made me annoyed because it's 90s stuff, so it's not like I know what these things are.
Like I think someone was carrying like a Sega Genesis, and this was like a video game console that was around at the time, but eventually just, you know, that whole line got obsolete because we just have PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. But yeah, like that one was maybe not as noticeable because, you know, is they were using things that were of the era, so it made sense.
And
And
if you want to be European about this, it's a Mega Drive. I don't know why they settled on the two names, but they did.
that is weird. Yeah, I mean, what's weird is Mega Drive sounds like it could be a Transformer name.
It does, yeah. It's it's like the Megatron, but instead of a plane, he's a car.
Yeah, there's also a scene where someone was playing a Sonic the Hedgehog video game, and they're like, "Wow, they should make a movie about this sometime." And it's like, "Oh, of course, because it's Paramount."
Of course, yeah.
But getting back to the main story of
Yeah, of
this,
course, yeah. I don't think we've talked much about the story today.
however much of this story there is,
Yeah, there wasn't much.
yeah, like Elena and Noah team up with the Autobots, and Elena talks about like her life story about how her boss at the museum is like really terrible and whatnot, and Noah's like, oh yeah, I've been trying to get a job and the bosses all look terrible, and like she's like, well, he tries to take credit and stuff, and it's like this movie feels like a commentary on like how terrible the management and just work in general is. It was just
Yeah.
like this weird thing that I guess people can resonate with.
Well, it's funny that you say that because Michael Bay isn't part of this. So that management is not here.
They also get a couple other allies with them because we also have a couple other main actors like Luna Lauren Velez. She plays Miles Morales' mom in Into the Spider-Verse, like those movies. And Toby Nwigwe, who has been in I'm not sure if Toby has been in anything I've seen, but he is a rapper and singer. So, there's a moment where he and Anthony Ramos's character kind of do a duet because they're both into music in real life. As talented as they were, like I think that was a moment that was kind of distracting for me. But what did you think?
I like Lauren Velez because I know her from Dexter, so I know she's a very capable actress.
Wait, was that her as LaGuardia?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I recognize her now. Yeah, I kept thinking, why does she look so familiar? It's okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, she's from Dexter. I love that show. Yeah,
Yeah.
with rappers going over to acting, it could be hit or miss. Like this guy wasn't as good, but like you get like Eminem was alright in his movie, and was it one that Tupac was in? Because
Juice?
yeah, Juice. He was good in that, and then Menace to Society had quite a few of those. Because like, was it Ice Cube? Because the thing, Ice Cube he's a really good actor. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
that. He's really funny.
No, yeah, I don't think that's a hot take. He's
Okay.
hilarious, and like Friday, Are We There Yet? The Jump Street movies, like he's Ice Cube and Will Smith are probably like the more popular, like the more successful ones I can think of. I know Will Smith has been in some stinkers, but as an
After
actor,
Earth.
yeah, After Earth, but as an actor,
It's pretty good.
yeah, we have had like a couple instances where a movie with a rapper takes a weird turn, like Halloween Resurrection.
Ooh.
Yeah, but I think in general it's kind of like it's like musicians in general. Like some of them will be really good as actors, and some of them just won't do as well. So like this team, like they have to like get back to Brooklyn because for whatever reason, the Maximals and Terrorcons decide that like they can't just fight in like this open space over in Peru. They also have to fight in cities where they can hide and disguise themselves and fight each other. And it was just kind of an annoying thing to me, but I guess they needed a reason to put Noah's family in peril, so he'd be like super worried and Also, Elena was worried about the museum because she's like, man, if they destroy the museum while they're fighting, where will I work? And it was just like, really? That's the big thing you're worried about?
Yeah, you're not worried about like people dying. Oh no, not my museum.
Yeah, like these characters have some good character moments, but they also have some weird, goofy writing dialogue moments. Are
Yeah,
just
it's very early Transformers.
right, for better or worse, I guess.
Yeah. You can't fault the writing when that's not the why you watch them. I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, you just watch for like all the smashy bits.
Exactly. When Optimus Prime died, oh my, the
Well,
feels.
well, I guess we'll get to those bits then. Like, what'd you think of the action overall? Like when they're fighting in Brooklyn?
Well, I'm not well versed at Brooklyn, so I'm not too wary of landmarks and everything. But I did notice they didn't really do much of the huge like Brooklyn Bridge. They didn't really mess with that. But they didn't. They definitely took some other things down, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, maybe they thought that using the Brooklyn Bridge after it's been like used over and over, like maybe they thought that doing that would have been a bridge too far.
Oh, oh.
Yeah, that just hurt your soul right there.
Yeah, the best kind.
Yeah.
Because also it would have been weird to have them in water, because we never see them in water before. Like you just like launch them off the side, and I don't know, they just rust really quickly.
Yeah.
Because it's not like Pacific Rim where they go on the water and stuff.
I will say that at this point in the movie, it does sort of become another CGI fest. And it's a bit easier to follow than in other movies, but in some places it does get kind of clunky. But what I will say is that I am glad.
McClunky.
Yeah. McClunky. I will say that it is refreshing that they actually build up to this and that it's like maybe an hour or so into the movie before they get to this. And this is like a 2-hour movie or something. So I do like that they took their time with it and did like some of this other setup first.
Yeah, but there's a lot more human interactions in this movie. Like Bumblebee, it was more human to human than the other movies were.
Yeah, like I do appreciate the human to human interactions and stuff. Like when Noah is talking to his family and trying to like make them feel safe, or when Elena is talking to her close friend on the phone, and because like this is kind of a side plot, but you know she has like this friend from college who's like going through some stuff. You know, it's just what I guess like millennial depression, like some of us go through.
Yeah.
I know you're Gen Z, but like it's something that like
Thank you for reminding me.
like lots of people can relate to. So it's kind of like this side plot to add a bit more character, I guess. So there's definitely like a mix of action and those human, like to human moments. What'd you think of the bit with the garbage man or bin man, I guess you would say?
Yeah, it's Bin Men. I did like that it was Dominic Toretto.
Yeah, Vin
Because this is the
Diesel.
callback to the other movie, Fast X, which had the Transformers in there. So it was nice to see them share their intellectual property with each other and have Dominic Toretto just driving a bin, the bin lorry, as we call them. It's quite hilarious.
Yeah, and since we've established that they now have time travel in the Fast and Furious movies, it's like, oh yeah, this totally works.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not sure where it fits and when he goes back in time to 94, but yeah, it works.
Yeah, it works. I mean,
I also thought it was funny when like there's this other you know there's this sequence where it starts off on like a normal morning and there's some people who put the bins out in the street and they're waiting for like the garbage truck to pick up the garbage, and the garbage truck drives by and it just turns into a transformer and just like eats the garbage.
it was nice to see truck when it transformed was really huge. Paul Walker.
Yeah, that was a really weird homage for them to do.
They got his brother to do like the talking again.
Yeah, and like Dominic Toretto like looks at it and like they give this look to each other like they do at the end of that one movie where they're like, and I'll tell you all about it when I
Yeah, the
see.
7th one.
Yeah, like it's like this really weird thing they've added to his character where he loves Brian so much like that, like he wanted this transformer to sort of replicate his face as a sort of tribute, I guess, because
Yeah, because do you remember in the
forever since they hung out.
in the other movie, in the other Transformers movies, you know, you see that the Transformers like scan cars to turn into. So he scanned Paul Walker to turn into Paul Walker.
Yeah, like there are all these like time travel adventures that apparently happened off screen. So yeah, it totally works.
It's some really obscure Transformers animation you have not seen yet. It explains it all.
I'm trying to remember like where we are in this movie. Oh, there is like this moment where you know, because they're like fighting all over the city, so like they're crashing through all these different things. Like they crash into this opera that's going on, and like the singers like go from like you know that type of singing where they go like ah! To like go into actual screaming like ah! Like running for their lives when like they're like smashing like the opera place.
Yeah, because they're singing Transformers as well. Like one of the rapping Transformers was like, you know, it was.
Yeah, it felt like that Jackbox game, Mad vs. City or whatever it's called.
Something like that.
Yeah, the one where it has Transformers looking things.
Yeah, it was literally Transformers.
Yeah.
So it's confirmed that they are the same in this movie.
Yeah, there's like someone at the opera who like I guess it's like some person who's really into video games, and they're like, huh, the rapping robots, that there might be something to this. And apparently this was supposed to be like someone who'd go on to do Jackbox games or something. It was like really weird.
Yeah, I do want the Jackbox Games opera to be real.
Yeah. Oh, what did you think of the rapping here in that, like with the rapping robots?
It's very political. They were like asking for like robot rights and everything.
Yeah, it felt very L337.
Yeah.
They're like,
But
my rebellion gave me rights. I'm a robot by day and night. They also crash through a movie theater when there's a screening of Forrest Gump, because that's also a Paramount movie. So
yes,
got to get that in there, I guess.
of course. And they had a Solo 2 sign up there as well. They had like a banner.
Oh yeah,
like, Solo 2 coming soon.
Yeah, because Dominic Toretto time traveled and was like holding that up. Yeah. People are like, what the hell is this? This makes no sense.
Well, your kids are gonna love it.
Yeah. When he's like driving the DeLorean. No, but like when they crash through the Forrest Gump screen, it's right after someone says, "Run, Forrest, run!" And then when they crash through it, people in the audience are like, run, and they just run away from the Transformers.
Yeah, like the scene from Final Destination when the cinema exploded.
Yeah, I had that in like the back of my mind as I was like describing this. Yeah,
That was a 3D movie.
the fourth one. It's like so like the Final Destination is like so obviously 3D. It's bad.
Like everything's come to the screen and you don't feel it. It was supposed to be 3D, but it looked so much worse.
Yeah, but anyway, there's like a lot of fighting going on. But how do you feel about the way that it concluded?
It's quite brutal. Like you're wondering, like, well, this is trilogy. Who's going to survive? So quite a few of the governmental higher ups started dying. So we were like, well, who's gonna look after the country after this mess? And then we realized that these two people are going to campaign to be the next president. They're going to be co-presidents of America and look after this mess together. The two main characters of the movie campaign at the end to say, we will run this country better. We will run this country and we will defeat the Terracons together, and they like unite everyone against the common cause.
Oh yeah, like Noah and Elena are gonna try to be the leaders of this world
Yeah.
that's now being attacked by these like terror cons. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then Dominic Toretto is like, this is a weird timeline. Should we do anything? And like,
They go, no one's mentioned family yet.
yeah. and then Noah goes to his family and it's like, no matter what, I will protect my family. And then Dominic is like, there it is.
I can go now.
Yeah. Dominic's like, okay, now back to the dinosaurs.
Is there a song like that? Back to the dinosaurs. I don't know.
Oh, it's a song in this movie that Toby's character raps briefly. He's like, back to the dinosaurs. And it's just really out of place. But yeah, I guess it was like a goodbye tune for Dom. It was weird.
It's all come together into one huge cinematic universe.
Yeah, because Dominion ended with like crossover with and like Fast 11 is like Jurassic period.
Like you just have like these cars that are all like it's all like all dinosaur bones, and they're like driving around in dinosaur bones.
So yeah, like this kind of shakes up the status quo, because in this timeline the entire world is like aware of Transformers existing, and now like they're gonna have to like convince people about which ones are the good ones and which ones are the bad ones, and so this kind of changes things. This was something I wondered about with Dark Phoenix, the X-Men movie, which that movie took place in 1992 and was supposed to be the beginning of a trilogy. And one thing that I wondered was whether the two sequels to that would have been like right after or both set in the 90s, or if they would have done like the 10-year time skips again like they did with the ones before. So they're kind of being tight-lipped about the direction of this trilogy. But how long after this one do you think the sequels would take place, after Rise of the Beasts? Like, do you think they'd be kind of consecutive, or do you think there'd be like large time skips?
I feel like at least like 10 years. So like you can see how, because obviously they have to become friends with the Transformers, like how we saw in the other series. Obviously they're not linked anymore, are they?
Right, because this is a different timeline, but they could play with like similar themes. Like it's a different scenario, because this is a continuity where people are more aware of the Transformers existing and it happens earlier, and so it's but they could still like try to figure out how to get people to trust all of them.
Yeah, so it's like basically them integrating into society.
Yeah,
So they're all getting jobs and everything.
yeah. And I mean, the idea of a 10-year time skip is interesting because a lot can happen. Like, there could be so much war from the Terracons. Like, what would this planet even look like? Would it be like a wasteland, or would it be like somewhat normal, but there's still destruction in some places? Like, the possibilities are endless here.
It just becomes Mad Max. Like, like the two.
Like,
Or
it's
the,
like all desert.
yeah, like two adults. Whether I can never remember their names. Elena, what's her name?
Oh, yeah, Elena and Noah.
Yeah, yeah. They like start a new family.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Noah has his family, so
But
I guess
they either have it's his other family though. It's like
like
his family.
oh man, like what if his family like dies like during the time skip? Like that would be like really
Ooh.
a disservice to
Then
his
they go back in
character.
time to try and save the kids. Perfect. There, I just written them a movie.
Yeah, just make that Terminator versus Transformers comic crossover canon. Just bring that into this trilogy.
So they start in the first movie, then the second movie is 10 years later. Then he realizes he misses kids. So the third movie they go back in time.
Oh man, that would be wild. But we've seen lots of wild things with these types of movies, so who knows? And there are a couple other things like at the end. Like there is like a little cameo of Haley Steinfeld's character where Bumblebee just like visits and sees her from afar, and like he doesn't really talk to her, and they don't really define like what she's up to, because I guess they don't want to, because there's this saying that I've heard where if you define you can find. So I guess we kind of want to leave it open like what she's up to, and it's just a little acknowledgement of the previous film, I guess. But there's this other moment at the end where Elena meets up with her mentor, who is, of course, 95-year-old Indiana Jones.
Yep.
Because, Indiana Jones is paramount, and they put like the makeup on Harrison Ford to make him look older, and he's got like an eye patch because he lost an eye in the fifth movie. Kind of reminisces about like what happened in Machu Picchu in his movie, and they compare their adventures. And he says something to the effect of cars, motorcycles, and all these other machine things sounds like something my son would be into. And it was like so cringe because it's like, okay, I get it. Sam Witwicky, Mutt Williams, like whatever. Again, like this trilogy could go in like all sorts of different directions. And yeah, they end the movie with like the end credits with like some 90s rock music. And yeah, that's the movie, I guess.
That was the movie.
So do you want to go into like final thoughts and then score out of 10?
I think we've spoken enough today.
Yeah, just end the episode right now.
Yeah, just end it now. Bye-bye, guys. See you 2 weeks' time.
Right. All right, so what are your overall thoughts and score out of 10? And do you know of measurement for this, for Transformers Rise of the Beast?
It was definitely better than Rise of Skywalker. But no, I feel like it's more my type of movie. So like I definitely preferred it over Bumblebee. But I probably need to watch Bumblebee again to really get real thoughts on it. But it wasn't too much. It was like in between Bumblebee and the other Transformers series. It's a bit of a half and half, which is what I enjoyed. Like the CGI wasn't too overpowering, and he did have not too much of the human-to-human interactions, even though some of it was pretty cringe. So I'd probably give this film a 6 out of 10 Dominic Toretto's. What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, I think I'm on the other end of this. Like, I enjoyed this less than Bumblebee, but more than the other Transformers movies. Well, I don't know, like more than the ones I liked least, but maybe. Actually, no, yeah, I think I do like this more than the other Transformers movies, but it still has a ways to go to be more improved. Some of it was pretty clunky. Some of the acting was pretty good though, so I think overall it comes across like kind of just fine. It does end with an intriguing springboard from which the sequels could pick up if they do those sequels. It makes me curious about like the future of this, because they've never really done this before, where a Transformers movie ends with, well, I guess they kind of tried it with Last Night, like with the ending kind of hinting at more stuff, and then they did it. But like usually we're used to like everything being more or less resolved within one movie, and then the next one will be a new conflict. But it seems like they're committed to this major conflict with the beasts, like the Terrorcons. And so I'm intrigued to see how much of it is mapped out and where they go with it. And potentially my score could go down depending on how they handle it. But for now, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10 laser discs. Because
you liked it more than I did.
There were laser discs in this movie as well, because 90s.
Yeah,
someone was like, these are going to catch on. And of course, we know that they don't. Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered it. So thanks for being on this episode, Greg. What are you part of? I forgot how I segue, but plugs and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm just anyway, we don't have to find me, you don't have to do anything. You can just find me at the Sussex Sci-Fi and Horror Society Discord. Just come and talk films with us, I suppose, if you wanted to. That's about it, I think.
Yeah, nice. And thanks again.
It's been good. It's always good.
Yeah. And as for me, people can follow me at Steven Schinder on Instagram and Twitter, Steven Schinder Storytelling on Facebook. You can email this podcast at delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on 90s CGI, I guess. You can also find my fantasy horror comedy novel, Lemons on My Brain, on Amazon. More info at stevenschinder.com. And really close to getting the second book out, Trespassing Through the Visages, just getting some stuff in order with that. And you can also find me on the podcast Yes Shift, which I do with my dad. It's also a vlog, and we talk about the progressive rock band Yes. I think by the time this episode comes out, we'll have done our 1-year anniversary show. So yeah, pretty wild that podcast has lasted a while, and we've interviewed people involved with Yes. So it's a great time. And the next delayed replay episode, 2 weeks from when this comes out, I think it'll be the 11th Fast movie, like F11, F211, like whatever it's called. These titles are like really confusing. But yeah, without further delay, have a good day.